Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're going to tackle something pretty big and a little futuristic. We're talking digital identity and how it could completely change, well, democracy as we know it.
Sounds intense.
It is, but also super interesting. I mean, imagine just using like an app on your phone to vote or to access all sorts of government services securely. That's the kind of world we're going to explore.
We're basically talking about online IDs,
Yeah.
right? Like digital versions of our passports or driver's license.
Exactly. Think e-passports, national ID apps, that sort of thing. And the crazy part is some countries are already doing this. Estonia, for example, they've had digital IDs since, get this, 2002.
Wow, 2002. That's way ahead of the curve.
Right. And it seems to be working for them. Over 40% of Estonians vote online now. That's a huge chunk of their population.
It really makes you wonder, could digital IDs be the key to boosting voter turnout globally? I mean, imagine the convenience. No more waiting in line at polling stations. You could vote from anywhere, anytime.
It sounds pretty good in theory, but I'm sure there's some challenges too, right? Like what about security and privacy? These are pretty big concerns when you're talking about something as sensitive as our identities.
You're absolutely right. Security and privacy are absolutely paramount. We need to be sure that these digital IDs are incredibly secure, that the data is encrypted, and that there are safeguards in place to prevent fraud and identity theft.
Makes sense. No point making voting easier if it's also easier for someone to steal your identity, right?
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. Good user experience can actually play a huge role in both security and accessibility. Think about it. If an app is easy to use, people are less likely to make mistakes that could compromise their security.
Oh, that's an interesting point. So like clear instructions, simple login processes, that sort of thing.
Precisely. And things like progress bars, so people know what's happening, clear language, multiple language options, we have to design these systems so they're intuitive, even for people who aren't super tech savvy.
I guess that makes sense, yeah. Because, we don't want to create a system that accidentally excludes people who might not be as comfortable with technology or who
Yeah.
don't have reliable internet access.
That's the digital divide we have to be so careful about. We don't want digital IDs to worsen existing inequalities.
It's like we're always walking this tightrope, aren't we? Trying to make things convenient and accessible, but also secure and inclusive.
Yeah. It's a balancing act for sure, but I think it's a challenge worth tackling. I mean, imagine the potential benefits, not just for voting, but for all sorts of government services.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, what if you could use your digital ID to easily access healthcare records or apply for benefits or even just renew your driver's license?
Exactly. It
Yeah.
could streamline so many processes that are currently, well, let's just say not very user-friendly.
Speaking of user-friendly, I think a lot of people, when they hear digital ID, their minds immediately jump to, like, super high-tech stuff, like blockchain and artificial intelligence. Is that stuff actually relevant here?
Oh, absolutely. Those technologies could play a huge role in the future of digital identity. Blockchain, for instance, could be used to create tamper-proof digital IDs, making them way more secure.
Tamper-proof, huh? That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it would basically eliminate the risk of forgery or someone messing with your data, and then AI could be used for things like instant identity verification.
So like facial recognition or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Or even more sophisticated methods that could analyze your unique patterns of behavior. It could make things much faster and more efficient.
Okay, so maybe this future isn't so far off after all. Are there any countries or organizations actually using these kinds of technologies right now?
Oh, yeah. Canada's doing some interesting things. They have pilot programs using blockchain and AI to create digital IDs for Indigenous communities. What's really cool is they're designing these systems with a real focus on UX, making them culturally sensitive and accessible.
That's awesome. It's great to see those kinds of initiatives happening.
Yeah, it gives me hope that we can build a digital future that works for everyone.
I hear that. It's exciting to think about what's possible, but also a little bit scary, right? Like, what are the potential downsides we haven't even considered yet?
For sure. There are always going to be unforeseen challenges and risks when you're dealing with new technology, especially when it's something as fundamental as our identities.
I guess that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to explore the potential benefits and challenges of digital identity and, maybe to start thinking about what kind of digital future we want to create.
I agree. We all need to be part of this conversation. It's about our identities, our privacy, and ultimately our democracy.
Well said. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive, but I got to ask you one last question. If we were to live in a world where voting was as easy as using an app, would you trust it? Would you feel comfortable handing over that much power to technology?
That's a tough one. I think it depends on how well those systems are designed and how much trust we have in the institutions that manage them.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. It's definitely something to think about. And for all of you listening out there, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Is digital identity the future of democracy? Or is it a step too far? Let us know in the comments. And join us next time for another deep dive.